Welcome to the Nicole Small Show, where we give you straight talk with no chaser. Here, we discuss issues from the White House to your house. And now, here's your host, Nicole Small.
Good morning and welcome to the Nicole Small Show. Today is Tuesday, April the 6th. We are going to talk about Stacy Abrams calling off the boycott. Did she call it off too soon? Should there have been more follow through? And also, we're going to address what happened with the testimony of the police chief from Minneapolis yesterday in the George Floyd trial. And there is a Chinese rapper who has come out and made a song about the attacks on the Asians. And I just want you to hear some of the lyrics and his position around the attacks. So it'll be interesting, and I'm looking to hear your thoughts. First thing, the city of Detroit is hiring. Let me give you this information. Mumford High School has announced job opportunities in the city to help with food bank, $15 an hour. And this is through September. If you know someone who is interested, share this information with them. I'm looking for a telephone number. Pass it along. This is the problem with the city. Just like when you're supposed to be able to get the CARES Act money, like where is the telephone number? I don't even see it. Hold on. Because I want you guys to be able to access this. This is ridiculous. You're giving me elder care information. Let's see. No, I don't see a telephone number on here. Not for hiring. Well, contact your city council person or your what do you call those people? District managers. See if they have some information about it. Also, yesterday we talked about the COVID vaccine. New Prospect, that's my church. They are offering the vaccine as well. And when is this? That's today, actually. So it's first come, first serve, 11 to 4 p.m. And that's 6330 Pembroke. And then the second date you would come back would be May the 4th. But it's not the Johnson & Johnson. The Johnson & Johnson is actually at Northwest Activity Center. So that is the only location where I'm seeing the Johnson & Johnson, because a couple of you reached out to me after the show yesterday, and it just so happened I received this additional information. So today, starting at 11 o'clock, if you want the vaccine, you could go to New Prospect Church. It's first come, first serve, so you don't have to have an appointment for that. All right. Okay, let's talk about the George Floyd, the testimony in the George Floyd case yesterday. What is his name? Police chief of Minneapolis, Arradondo, he testified yesterday about the actions of Chauvin, the police officer who had his knee on George Floyd's neck for about 9 minutes. And one thing I would say is that I know that there is a lot of frustration around the police department across the country. But this brother here, he did the right thing. And you know how, you know, that cold blue, it runs deep. And it's really hard to, well, it's rare that you will get one of them to come out and speak the truth, especially against another officer. So just listen to this really quickly.
Defendant followed departmental policy 5-304 regarding de-escalation.
I absolutely do not agree with that.
And how so?
That action is not de-escalation. And when we talk about the framework of our sanctity of life, and when we talk about the principles and values that we have, that action goes contrary to what we're talking about.
As you reflect on Exhibit 17, I must ask you, is this a trained Minneapolis Police Department defensive tactics technique?
It is not.
We read the departmental policy on neck restraints. Is this a neck restraint?
The conscious neck restraint by policy mentions light to moderate pressure. When I look at Exhibit 17, and when I look at the facial expression of Mr. Floyd, that does not appear in any way, shape.
A couple of things. One, the actual clip that they were speaking of, the exhibit that they were speaking of, is when George Floyd was face down on the ground and Chauvin was on top of him. And so that was the exhibit that the attorney was asking the chief of police, you know, is this acceptable? Is this a part of proper protocol? And he said no. And I really tuned in on the part where he talked about how it violates the principles and the policies of the police department. Because, you know, in my opinion, I definitely believe that a lot of these actions that we are seeing taken by, excuse me, these police officers who are just, again, slaughtering our people in the street, it's personal. I don't believe that it's written anywhere, but I believe that it's an unspoken code and behavior of some of these officers to get out here and to abuse their power. And here lies the problem. Another thing, don't forget, this chief of police fired all of them. I believe that that was great. You know what I mean? He utilized his power in a manner that he should. Why don't we see more of this across the country? And we have to, you know, I know this happened last year and we've seen a lot of news media around this issue, but I just want you to think about something. If justice isn't served, which I don't believe it is with the charges that this officer is facing, but if no justice is even served, no real prison time or anything, this is going to continue. It will absolutely continue. And I don't believe that these officers, not just here in Minneapolis, but across this country, who engage in this type of behavior, have any intentions on changing. And I said this last week, the only way they're going to change is if they're made to change. This is horrible. You know, the smirk on that man's face when he had his knee on top of George Floyd and the other officers who were protecting him. And now, you know, you have this child officer who wants to say, well, you know, there was nothing that I can do. We were holding off, protecting the other officers from the citizens. You can see that the man was dying. And no, to have an entire group of officers not to do anything. But if you think about it, it's almost like this officer, Derek, was the ringleader. And I believe you have a ringleader in a lot of these precincts. And this is another part of the problem. But again, his family, they're well protected. Outside, again, of having to get some phone calls. And you don't even know what his family looks like. You know, so they can feel free to go to the store and everything without any pushback, any challenges. And say nobody would even know to tell them, like, your husband's an asshole, which I think that that's more than fair to hear all those kind of statements, personally, considering what he did. And the fact that you still married to him, I have a problem with. Like, you want this man to be around your children, so you know what's going to happen? They're going to raise some more kids to be just like this. Think about it. Like, they train their children up to behave this way. I remember watching a video, and they were showing how, you know, in our culture, in the Black community, we teaching our children how to twerk and stuff like this, you know, these young girls, and they teaching these little toddlers how to shake their butt. And then you know what they did? They showed these white kids, and like at age 4 and 5, they're training them on how to shoot a gun. Not to say that you need to be training your kid at 4 or 5 how to shoot a gun. That's not what I'm saying. I just want to make a point about what they're instilling in their children, these white supremacists. They're training them up to practice hatred and to become killers of people just because of the color of their skin. And I think that we need to do a better job. Unfortunately, like, who wants to have this conversation with children at such a young age, but unfortunately we just do. Like what to do if they're in the back seat and you're pulled over by the police. You know, when your kids get old enough to walk to the store, like what to do if they're approached by the police. It's sad. It's like our children can't even be children anymore. And we have to have these conversations. You know, I think about the young lady who was 9 years old, and she videotaped Sister Andrea being assaulted by a store owner. And you know what? One thing that stood out to me, to all of those people in that community who were supporting the owner, the business owner who assaulted Andrea, is this: nobody ever thought about how that had affected that 9-year-old girl to sit there and to witness that, to see this man on top of her, abusing her, and to watch blood pouring out of her mouth. And then you see other Black men standing around, not even trying to give her any assistance. Psychologically, our children endure enough. Because if you're Black, you're born into the struggle. I don't mean even if you're born into an affluent lifestyle, like there are just a different set of circumstances that you have to live by. Because that's the way society and the system operates. But the sickness in these white supremacist mindsets and how they seek, and to me, I don't know if I said this on a show the other day, but I was having a conversation about how I believe this is first-degree murder and it was premeditated. Maybe not to go out and to kill George Floyd that day, but you better believe that he had it on his mind that he was going to kill a Black person. He just had to. And you look at how he's getting off with these charges. Second-degree murder, you know, it's always about what they can't prove. If you can't prove a stiffer punishment after seeing that video, it shows you how screwed up the system is. Because if that was a white woman or a white man being assaulted by a Black officer, you would get the death penalty probably. Somehow, some way they would make that work. But they don't value our lives, which is all the more reason why we must value our own. We have to understand that. But here it is. You're listening to these testimonies. I've never seen in a trial so many different witnesses who didn't have a personal relationship with the victim crying. There was no one who was a relative of George Floyd who was there at that incident. Every day there's somebody crying up on the stand. The EMT lady, the medical examiner and told you that he died due to suffocation. I mean, everybody's up there crying. To watch this man be murdered. He was tortured before he was murdered. So something has to change in this system, but I think a part of the problem is that we're not steadfast in our efforts. When we make a demand, too often we relinquish that pressure too early. We said during this presidential election, you know, we wanted this George Floyd bill to pass. Then we ended up flipping the Senate. I mean, they're now, look at them. Now they're enforcing voter suppression in Georgia. For every 5 steps that we get ahead, they already have a plan B to take us back 15 or 20. And when are we going to understand that part of it? We must be able to get that. And I don't know if we do. So speaking of relinquishing some of the pressure, you have Stacy Abrams, who, you know, I just really admire her and her work ethic, and other sisters from Black Women's Roundtable, and those who have helped her to organize around increased voter turnout, fair and equal elections, you know, and flipping, you know, turning the Senate blue. Great, great, great job. You know that I really, really admire her for that. So with that said, think about this. I don't know what this is. Oh, think about this. last week we talked about a boycott that was supposed to begin on April the 2nd. And I told you it was supposed to include Home Depot, Delta Airlines, Ace Hardware, Chick-fil-A. I should have went to the line to see how many of y'all I saw on the line, because I told you you're supposed to be boycotting Chick-fil-A. Then Aflac, Coca-Cola, of course, boycotting Coca-Cola. And so Stacy Abrams came out with this video, and the video talked about not boycotting. So just think about this, and then I'm going to show you some of the responses after, like real close to the day. So that was April the 2nd, which was last Friday. And I'm going to post and show you some of the responses from these organizations when they knew that they were about to kick off the boycott. So listen to what Stacy Abrams, her comments was calling for us to end the boycott. Here we go.
Stacy Abrams. I wanted to take a moment to update you on what's happening in Georgia and across the country. Thanks to the efforts of activists like you, we stopped Georgia Republicans key parts of their voter suppression wish list. Weekend voting, and specifically souls to the polls, disproportionately used by Black Georgians, remain in place. Georgia voters will continue to be able to vote by mail regardless of their reason for doing so. And eligible Georgians will continue to be automatically registered to vote when they obtain their driver's licenses, unless they opt out. Unlike some, though, I won't sugarcoat this. Senate Bill 202 is a power-grabbing and voter criminalizing suppression bill that is nothing less than Jim Crow 2.0. This Republican-passed legislation was rushed through with an unprecedented speed to avoid public scrutiny. The bill makes it a crime to show compassion by offering a bottle of water or a snack to a voter or their child waiting in line. And the bill makes it much easier to challenge Georgians' right to vote. State House Republicans seized power over the state election board and gave themselves the authority to remove county election officials who don't do their bidding. They placed limits on access to drop boxes, shortened the time frame to request a mail ballot, and more. At a time when Georgia ranks as the worst state in the nation for COVID vaccination rates, Georgia Republicans instead were laser focused on reviving Georgia's dark past of racist voting laws. Their efforts, based on the lies of conspiracy theorists and capital insurrectionists, are shameful. Sadly, as they learned from Jim Crow voting laws before, you don't have to explicitly exclude voters by race, but you can make sure people of color are clearly the target. It worked before, and they're counting on it working again. But we know from recent elections in Georgia that the way to overcome voter suppression is to vote. We must hold Republicans accountable by voting them out. I understand the passion of those calling for boycotts of Georgia following the passage of SB 202. Boycotts have been an important tool throughout our history to achieve social change. But here's the thing. Black, Latino, AAPI, and Native American voters whose votes are the most suppressed under SB 202 are also the most likely to be hurt by potential boycotts of Georgia. To our friends across the country, please do not boycott us. And to my fellow Georgians, stay and fight, stay and vote. Make no mistake though, we must all.
So she references the impact that the Bill 202 will have on voters, and it is, according to her description, Stacey Abrams' description, it's Jim Crow 2.0. All right, that's fair. I support that. With that said, if it's Jim Crow 2.0, and her point is that this will impact, having a boycott will significantly impact people of color, and that's why we shouldn't do it. But you also acknowledge how important boycotts have been in being able to get justice throughout our history. Then I don't understand why it's being called off. For me, again, there are casualties in every war, and in order to get justice, we all have to make sacrifices. That's where I struggle to see why she would call off the boycott. I agree. Voting is one of the best ways to utilize our power to make sure that we change the outcomes and the decisions of these racist elected officials, because that's the problem. We have a lot of racist elected officials. But sometimes I think that our community, so if power concedes nothing without a demand, when you make the demand, shouldn't you follow through with your efforts? That's where I get a little confused. But again, some of the organizations that were on the list for boycott did come out right before the boycott was about to launch. And this was some of their responses. And I want to talk about this with you. Let's pull some of those up. Can we show? Yep, there we go. Look at Affleck talking about how they remain committed to their previously stated principles that voting should be easily accessible, secure, and transparent. We have been engaged in a process and will continue to be actively involved to ensure that every eligible Georgian can exercise their right to vote. Okay, let's go to the next one. Atlanta Hawks. They talk about, being the first sports franchise in the U.S. venue as a safe, efficient voting site during the pandemic, and they've taken real visible action to ensure voting is accessible to our community. Talk about the importance of the right to vote and its fundamental citizens' right. And we at the Hawks view ourselves as a civic asset. Interesting. Not a partisan organization. So basically, they don't want to get in the middle of this Republican versus Democrat debacle. I bet you don't, because a lot of you have supported these Democrats who are making these decisions. There lies a problem. Let's go to the next one. Atlanta Falcons. They talk about every voice and every vote matters, and it should be heard through our democratic process in Georgia. So basically, just let the vote work itself out. But it's the vote that they're trying to suppress, right? The right to vote is simply sacred. We should be working to make voting easier, not harder, for every eligible citizen. To that end, AMBSE leadership, along with the nonprofit partners conveyed that ideal directly to state officials in recent weeks. You conveyed that directly to them, but you wouldn't come out with a statement until you had the pressure. See, I don't know. Do we have another one? I think that's it. So in my opinion, they were all very safe with their responses to say that they believe that voting should be fair. I do too, but it's not, is the whole point. Why didn't anyone take a clear stance saying that you don't support the actions of this jerk of a governor and his comrades who are actually suppressing the vote of the people in Georgia, the people of color in Georgia? Like, be clear about taking a position. This was very safe. And is this the best that we can get out of you when we're pushing for a protest? A boycott. The whole point of the boycott was to make them come out and to clearly take a position. And so this is why I struggle with Abrams' position to call off the boycott. You take a look at the approach of Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. I think they both, within their own right, were just phenomenal leaders, right? And everyone does not have to lead the same way. So that's not my point. But it was something to be said about Malcolm X's approach, especially in that scene in the movie when he went and told the police, if you don't release my people, told them to look outside because you're going to have a problem. And it was, now what if they would have said that they were looking into it and just actually wouldn't have released them from prison? Then they would have had a problem. That's my point. He was very clear about his demand. And that's what I think, it might be some other layers to this. It's just that what I'm saying from the outside is that follow through with the boycott, make those businesses feel that pressure to their profit margin. Because see, then that's when you understand something. That's when you see these businesses that they won't try you again next time. Because if they can know that they can have you do all of this, and think about the organizing that goes into staging a boycott. A real boycott That takes a lot of effort. Okay, that's not no, oh, I'm gonna post something and make a few calls and then now everybody is gonna boycott. No. And so after all of that work, then it's almost like an empty threat to a certain extent. I think that these businesses, because it took them so long to move, should have felt that financial impact so you can understand that we are serious and you're going to stop playing these games with us and you're going to stop taking our dollars for granted. Period. They had no business. When this first happened, they should have been all on it. They should have came out and they should have told all of those Republicans who you know that they have supported with those financial dollars that you need to back off. You should have taken a clear position and said, we do not support the efforts of X, Y, and Z. That's it. But now I feel like, while they're saying something, I don't know if they're really lifting their voice around this issue. Tyler Perry also had made a statement. His statement was addressing that he wants the DOJ to actually take a look at this. He too feels like this could impact, our people of color. I get it. That's true to a certain extent, but still, these businesses need to feel the pressure and they need to feel the pain. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will be joined by our guest, Sister Elena Harada.
Tune in to the Nicole Small Show, Mondays and Tuesdays from 8 to 10 a.m., where you'll get straight talk with no chaser. If you miss a show, then you won't know. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook.
You voted, now what? You Voted Now What, LLC is a social impact marketing firm for the business person looking for bold strategies to unleash the buying power of our community. That's social impact marketing. Find more info at info@youvotednowwhat.com. Mention the Nicole Small Show for a 15% discount. That's right. Email info@youvotednowwhat.com for more information. And remember, get your souls to the polls August 3rd, 2021 for the Detroit mayoral election. Protect the vote, Detroit, with Beverly Kendall Walker for Detroit City Clerk. Be the change you want to see in the world. So protect the vote August 3rd, 2021. Call or text Beverly Kendall Walker for more information at 313-618-9749. That's 313-618-9749.
Welcome back to the Nicole Small Show. We are joined by our guest, Elena. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Are you there?
Okay. Can you see me? Okay. Try not to scare you here. I'll try not to scare you.
That's okay. Listen, so before the break, we were talking about the boycott in Georgia. That governor came down, he's just a typical racist Republican, but the boycott was called off. So I had posted some of the statements from these organizations, these businesses that were going to be boycotted. I felt that they were paper thin. They didn't take a strong position against the legislation that was enforcing, this voter suppression, of which you're calling Jim Crow 2.0. So I know often we struggle in a grassroots community here in the city of Detroit with people backing down, not wanting to stand up strong on the front line, ending up going to the other side, which, a lot of us are called selling out. But what are your thoughts around ending this boycott before these organizations take a real strong stance against the bad actors of this legislation?
Well, I think that they are really backpedaling, but it's way too soon to call off a boycott if you have momentum. And I really do think that there was a momentum, and I definitely understand the position that Stacy Abrams was in, because she's responsible for the economics of the state and of the people, and she probably has a constituency of thousands of people who work in those places. So there is that's a thin line, and also there's some signaling that's going on, right? She has to say, I don't want you to boycott these major corporations in Georgia because thousands of Georgians work in these places. And she doesn't want to be responsible for the failure of the economy of the state. But she's not. The governor is. And everybody who can read between lines, which is pretty much most political people, understand that. And, I want to give you a little bit of background, if I could, too, because I've historically been involved in some boycotts. I was involved in the farm workers movement, and I had a lot of direct contact with Cesar Chavez during the grapes and lettuce boycott, because I'm old, and we go back here. We go way back to the point of long before there was internet, cell phones. There wasn't anything to do except word of mouth, and word of mouth is more effective than any other kind of there's no better way of people talking to each other. There's just nothing. It's organizing in the grassroots. But when we did the boycotts, there was a big strategy, and Caesar actually used to make sure that all the organizers read the Wall Street Journal, all the New York Times, and all of the trade magazines that dealt with stocks and shares, and we had to actually know who all the subsidiaries were. So if I said boycott steak-made mushrooms, and in order to do that, we're going to tell people not to buy Ralston Purina, they wouldn't know what we were talking about. We had to do a lot of work on the ground to be able to explain the importance of the economics of what Caesar taught us was the consumer boycott as the court of last resort. It's a court of last resort. So you don't go to it first and stand up in front of cameras and say, we're going to boycott, when you haven't talked to the people. You have to do a lot of work on the ground, and boycotting some Pepsi-Cola or Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Coke, that's like asking people to boycott crack. They're just not. They're just not, because people that love that product are very loyal to it. It would be like asking Latinos to boycott Tide. It's just not going to happen. We just have this certain DNA that's connected to certain brands, and it'll never happen. But what we can do, though, and I look at this really important connection between Detroit and Georgia, all the thousands of dollars that Dan Gilbert gave to Kelly Loeffler, who has direct ties to the Klan. Direct ties to the Klan, and thousands of people in Detroit. The biggest employer in Detroit is supporting Georgia's Klan. We have to really look at the connections to things, and that's not a big leap. It's not. It's a straight line. We don't do that kind of education, and we don't hear any leaders in Detroit talking about Dan Gilbert did this in order to be able to maintain a Jim Crow status quo in Georgia. Money from Detroit went to that. We don't talk about that.
That's what I'm talking about, our short-term memory. It does us in every time. It does us in every time. It's the detriment to us succeeding at getting justice and equity around so many disparities that are plaguing our community. And it's because we have such a short-term memory. I mean, my God, it wasn't that long ago. It was only a couple of months ago that he just was trying to fund these people in Georgia who were clear racists. And you look at Kelly, like some of her statements that she had made about, Black women in the WNBA, like all kind of garbage. And he supported that. He supported that. So all of that, it was on his heart to create this foundation and everything. I'm not buying it. He owes us money anyway for all of the benefits that he
took money from us.
He received off of poor Black folks in Detroit, period.
Yep. So it's not just the short-term memory that I'm concerned with, and I have many examples. It's the lack of depth. The lack of depth between. You have to follow the money. Yes. And look at how much foundation money is tied up. The philanthropy that's tied up in these giveaways. It's all it is laundered bank money, and the banks are nothing but tools for the Klan in these cases. I want to talk a little bit about what happened, and people may remember during the emergency manager battles that we had. And I don't know if you remember that the UAW said that they were going to, on our behalf, of all of us who had lost our voting rights, lost the right to govern, our schools are being completely dismantled by these thieves in broad daylight with full support of the federal courts. The UAW president, Bob King, said that they were going to disinvest from Chase because Chase was so involved in the bankruptcy. They didn't do it. Do you know they made a statement like that, and then they didn't? They could have pulled their strike fund out of Chase Bank, and they never did it. So the people, I have to give it to those who took a chance and went up. Remember, Bullock went up there and stood up there with Bob King, and at the last minute, they capitulated. And I think that probably also. I feel also that Stacy Abrams is looking at the efficacy of a boycott and thinking like it's better not to say you're going to have one than to say you're going to have one and have it fail so miserably, because you have to have people really on the ground doing it. So I think
that they would have been able to follow through. But you know what? My issue is you didn't have the boycott, to my understanding, the way I read it, would have just been on that Friday, right? So you boycotted for one day. You look at how much money that these organizations have lost. And then in my opinion, then you sit down and say, now this is how much money you lost in one day. Now I suggest you get your sugar honey iced tea together and get on board, or you're going to lose even more. That way you don't really compromise the jobs of, Black and brown people who are most significantly impacted by this voter suppression, right? And so I think that would have been the best approach. At least give them something to think about in the sense of dollars, because that's what they understand is money. They don't care anything about the oppression that we endure. They don't care anything about how this has a direct impact on our quality of life right there on our doorstep. They don't care, but what they care about is their profit margin. So sometimes you have to speak other people's language. And that's what I mean. Like, even if they would have boycotted for a day and show how much money they lost for that one day and said, like, now do you understand how serious we are about it? I just feel like they should have felt that pinch. So then they don't try this, because it was too long. It took too long for them to come out and make these half-baked statements. Go ahead.
Another thing that could happen that I think people could do, but people are so hesitant to do anything that's also inconvenient, is take your money out of a bank. If there's a Georgia-based bank, any Georgia-based bank, take your money out of that bank and put it somewhere else. All you'd have to do is if you had 100 people do that, and that's not that hard. If you had 100 people do that, it would be a huge shot across the bow to the financial industry in Georgia. after all that Georgia has done, and now and telling people that you can't bring them water in the line to create a situation where people have to stand in line to vote and then refuse to give them water. I hope.
And then in Georgia, you know how hot it is in Georgia in August for the primary.
Yeah. I hope that we got buses from Detroit going, and this old broad right here will be on that damn bus.
That's right. That's right.
We do get buses going down there because Georgia is creating a freedom summer. Not that we have our own. We really, they're putting out a call for a freedom summer. That's what has to happen.
And then hopefully, you know, I hope that all of this is to gain more momentum around a gubernatorial election next year for Abrams. You know, this just has to be her time. Which, to my point, I still think that would have helped her too if she would have boycotted, because then they would have understood the power that she has and how they need to support that campaign. But that's okay. I still think, you know, I hope that she really does decide to run for governor next year, and I hope people come out and support her. That effort needs to be starting real soon. And how are we going to protect the votes? Because they cheated her out of that race.
They sure did. They sure did. And she's still on her feet, knocking those doors every day. I have to trust that she knows her strategy. And also, one person can't really, if you create a tidal wave, one person can't hold that back. So maybe she's expecting that it'll continue without her, and she doesn't want to be the face of it.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Well, be that. But
I
also,
definitely think that she has her reasons. Like I said, just on the outside, on the surface, I just wish they would have made those organizations feel that financial pinch. Because let's just be honest, you know, both of our communities are taken advantage of and exploited, you know, and we're always investing in somebody else's dream, you know, and that's the problem, and their success of their business. But I think that she will continue to do great things. I think that her leadership and the leadership of the people on her team is just, it's groundbreaking. You know, like, they have really made history. I agree with you. I could see them creating a freedom summer. I love that tagline. And I look forward to seeing what else they would do. I wish some of it, we can change the mindset here to get people to really understand, number one, that you're free. So stop conducting yourself as if, you know, you are in shackles and enslaved, and to get people to really push and exercise their freedoms and their power. We need more of that here. What we stand to face, if we don't change, if we don't make the next 4 years better, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble. And we're in the North. Like, how is the South going to be more progressive than we are? Right?
It's not. It's not. I mean, it's an illusion, because it's all one empire. But I do want to also ask that we think really seriously about the sports teams here and their connection to taking education. The LCA, the Illich Holdings and the Dan Gilbert's Quicken Loans takes the tax captures from our schools and our libraries. And what we don't question, Detroit Public Schools, Wayne County Community College, and the Detroit Public Libraries are the only ones that are giving our tax captures to what? To the zoo, to the DIA, and to LCA. So we're basically supporting Macomb County, Oakland County, and they don't have to give up their schools. They don't have to give up their libraries to come here and take everything that we have here. There has to be a better way of understanding this campaign so that we make them give us our money back. We have to make them give us our money back. This is an apartheid tax structure.
But I think that comes along with our demand as well, right? Stop going into the room saying that, oh, you know what, you're taking advantage of our kids. And really and truly, when we talk about education and with them compromising the education of our schools, we're talking about them really compromising the quality of life directly, right? Because education is so important, and having those resources, that's right, our future, having those resources readily available to not just our preschool children, but all the way up to our adults who are going for continued learning, you know, education. And what I talk about when I say being clear when we go in the room. Stop walking out with some more basketball courts. Stop walking back out with a load of backpacks. Kids don't even get books anymore in school, most of them. You know what I mean? When you go into that room, you need to be clear about your demand, and you need to speak directly to those tax captures and outline the impact that it's having on our community. You cannot keep walking out of there with a few pieces of silver.
Yep.
But here lies the problem, which is why that city council, like how they supported that Pistons deal, and you look at what we got out of it.
But it's everything, every tax abatement downtown. We have to stop them from doing it, and we have to stop any candidate from being able to proceed without making a commitment to overturning the tax abatements.
The Ford family and the Illich family, like you said, they have benefited tremendously off the ignorance of our legislators, okay? And the weakness of our legislative body, which is city council. So, it wasn't enough that they had a great gravy deal for the Ford field. Then you turn around and you get this gravy deal for the train station, right? It's not good enough that the Illiches walked away and they cleaned off their debt of $200 million or whatever, which they still owed us from Joe Louis Arena. And then you turn around and you don't even make them pay that back in a new agreement for Little Caesars Arena. And they tell you they're going to give affordable housing, and they clearly have just empty parking lots sitting there. I mean, if no other reason, people need to pay attention to how this council has given away everything. It's like a bunch of bumbling idiots. Like, how do you not make them pay in a new agreement when they owe you hundreds of millions of dollars already off of Joe Louis Arena? They had a huge debt from Joe Louis Arena. Then you go make another deal for an arena for them to build, and you don't even bake into that agreement to make sure that they pay that. And then to add insult to injury, then you allow them to get more tax captures, and like you say, to take away from our schools and our libraries. I don't know a panhandler on a corner that would make a deal so stupid.
And then they give away these gifts and say, we're giving food to the homeless. They're creating the homeless. They created people who are
so right.
They're creating generations of people that are going to be parking the cars over there. That's what they want to do. They've created a class of people who will continue to do without. And all these new people moving to Detroit, they don't have to worry about where their kids are going to school. I don't know where they're thinking their kids are going to go to school, but it sure isn't Detroit Public Schools. We definitely not. And we do need a new mayor. We do need a new city council. We need at least 5 people that we can trust on the council. We have to get them. And I want to also say before we finish that we need to stop going on these Zoom meetings and go to their houses, because we can just be muted on Zoom. We need to go back to their houses. We have to go to their houses. Make them aware of our presence.
It amazes me how we have an entire body of government that's supposed to be there to support the best interests of the people, and we get anything but that, and I would think about, like, Georgia would not tolerate this. And that's why I wish Detroit could just get it together and understand they work for you. And stop being so elated when you see these people and they have done you wrong. Like, they are the demise of our community, period. They feed into the detriment of how we live. They just do. And single-handedly, this is what they're doing, each one of them. I look at how, you had, look at what happened yesterday with the funding for the charter. You had Council President Brenda Jones, Tate, Benson, Leland, and Ayers to vote not to give us our money that we need for the Charter Commission. And this is the people's charter. And these are the same people going to turn around and run this year.
And this is the good cop, bad cop routine, because otherwise those other 4, they know it wasn't going to pass.
Right.
They knew they could make it stop it. So the 4 got on safely with the good cop, bad cop routine. The only one, there's 2 that continuously vote for the people. As quirky as, what's her name? Raquel is. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to get along with this. She usually votes the right way, but she doesn't have 4 people to come with her ever. We got David running against her, but she's not the biggest problem.
No.
What the problem is,
and you look at how Roy McAllister voted to support it, and then you have Brenda Jones to switch seats, and she voted not to support it. So it's just like, this is what goes on. Look, they all know at the end of the day, they're going to want to get money for their campaigns. This is the people's charter, and it makes absolutely no sense that they have voted against the people. Let's take a call. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show.
Good morning, Nicole, and your guest. How you doing this morning?
Doing good. Good morning, Stevetta.
Listen, I just want to say you're exactly right. Now, let's look at Gabe Leland. His no news about his court hearing was canceled. And also, let's even talk about nobody even mentioned as far as even how Brenda Jones left the room but came back, gave the because I watched it after the fact. I watched it on when they played back.
Yeah.
How strategic played, and somehow at first it's like she hurried back like she was on vote. They don't have the best interest of the citizens of Detroit.
I agree, and it's blatant. And just
like I said, the newspaper gonna put Ellis, the guy in region in District 1 about his campaign. How come they didn't put about other people's campaign? You see how I'm saying? The newspaper. Now, if we want to have a boycott, we need to stop looking at their stuff on the online and anything else. We need to stop looking at all the stations and just kind of look at cable. Because in the news, they said nothing good about Detroit. Always want to glorify Dan Gilbert.
That's right.
The illest.
That's right.
The mayor, they're not doing anything. The mayor need to do is the paper need to say, "Give me my money."
Yep, cut the check. That's right.
The difference between their mayor and the mayor in Atlanta. You remember when the mayor that died, Jackson?
Yes.
Remember, he controlled that Atlanta Journal.
Yes, he did.
He told them if they wasn't gonna put nothing good, and what about the neighborhoods and things that's happening? Don't even publish, so people don't buy it.
Don't buy it.
The whole paper change. Maybe we need to start doing that too. That's the reason why the paper now is online, because people stop buying it.
Because they fed up. Because they were fed up. That's right. And you know what? If we don't start exercising our power with our dollars, then you know what? They're going to continue to treat us this way.
That's right. Like that, children. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Nicole, I hope that we can start a hashtags of racist media every time they don't give equal time to candidates, because there used to be laws that required equal time for candidates, and there aren't anymore. We should name it on a Twitter, Detroit Racist Media, hashtag.
Because that's exactly what's happening.
Yep.
That's exactly what's happening.
Every time they show Gabe Leland or don't show Gabe Leland and don't show our candidates, we should name it. Every day we should get a campaign going. It's free, and it might not be everything that we need, but I think it might be able to turn the tide.
No, you look at the way, you know what kills me about this racist media? Look at how when Anthony Adams said that he was running, it was, Anthony Adams worked for the most corrupt mayor. Anthony Adams, deputy mayor for the most corrupt mayor. But they never did that when Conrad Mallett became deputy mayor for Duggan. And Conrad Mallett was the deputy mayor for Kwame Kilpatrick during his first term, which is when the majority of all of this mess that they convicted him, sent him to jail for some ungodly 28, 26 years. All of that happened in the first term, but not one time did you hear the media saying that Conrad Mallett was now going to be the deputy mayor for Duggan, and he had been the deputy mayor for the most corrupt mayor. See, Kwame wasn't a corrupt mayor then when Conrad Mallett was on for Mike Duggan, but when Anthony Adams decides to run, then you want to say that he was the deputy mayor for the most corrupt mayor. See how they play these games? And this has nothing to do about Anthony or Conrad. It has everything to do about how they frame this false narrative, and they don't want to say anything about Duggan. That's why. You know, he can pick whoever he wants to pick, and it never shines a negative light on him. He can do whatever he wants to do. Some of the same things that they claim that Kwame Kilpatrick did, and we never get that real story. So it's always going to be the same thing about the leadership and the candidates who are running, who are really trying to run to change the quality of life for the better for the people. Either they won't do a story about them, or they're going to try to tear their names apart. But you know what? We need to stop being so stupid and feeding into that garbage, and take a look at how they won't tell you anything about these people who they're setting you up to lead you down a rabbit hole.
Well, I think we can push back against it. And there's two things that I really hope that we can do. Get our social media going on one page and start going after the racist Detroit media, hashtag racist Detroit media.
And tag them in the post.
Yep. And also we need to really start going to their houses, because there's nothing happening at council on Zoom.
That's
There's
right.
nothing happening. We're just like, we're like animals in a cage.
It's
We're like,
1 minute council. They only want to give you 1 minute to speak. They are literally silencing your voice.
And we got our sound systems, and we have our little, we can put our rides together and go down there.
It's going to be 77 degrees today. It's not supposed to rain. If we don't take advantage of these days, then I don't know what to tell you.
Whose house should we go to today?
Leland's. Can we find it?
He's in Okemos, isn't he?
Yeah, right.
We could go there on the way to Duggan's house in Wixom.
Yeah. Right. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, we cannot keep sitting here and just complaining. I agree with you. Action has to be taken, which is what we're going to talk about when we come back from this break. I want you to hear about the responses from the NYPD, New York Police Department, and how they've deployed special officers undercover to go protect the Asians who are under attack. And then also there's an artist, a Chinese artist, who has done a rap, and I just want you to hear about his perception of what the Asian community has contributed to America. So we'll talk about that when we come back from this break.
Okay.
Tune in to the Nicole Small Show, Mondays and Tuesdays from 8 to 10 a.m., where you'll get straight talk with no chaser. If you miss a show, then you won't know. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook.
You voted, now what? You Voted Now What LLC is a social impact marketing firm for the business person looking for bold strategies to unleash the buying power of our community. That's social impact marketing. Find more info at info@youvotednowwhat.com. Mention the Nicole Small Show for a 15% discount. That's right. Email info@youvotednowwhat.com for more information. And remember, get your souls to the polls August 3rd, 2021 for the Detroit mayoral election. Protect the vote, Detroit, with Beverly Kendall Walker for Detroit City Clerk. Be the change you want to see in the world. So protect the vote, August 3rd, 2021. Call or text Beverly Kendall Walker for more information at 313-618-9749. That's 313-618-9749.
Oh, excuse me. Welcome back to the Nicole Small Show. Did we lose Elena? Did we lose Elena?
Yes,
okay,
we did.
Okay, we'll try to get her back on. Hopefully she logs back on. I cannot stand the change in this weather. I'm sorry. I have allergies and sinuses, and I knew yesterday that little bit of that rain, and when this weather drops 30 degrees, oh my goodness. Hold on one second. All right, so I wanted to play this video for you guys. What happened to it? Oh my goodness. Oh, here it is. Listen to this guy, China Mac. He is Chinese rapper, and he made this song, and I'm just gonna play a couple of just a couple of lines for you, just a few minutes. Listen to this about the Asian attacks.
Let's go. Yeah. Our levels is gone. Said America. Why they hate you run deep in America? Why they wanna kill me in America? Is it me or is it cause they scared of us? Said America, dear America. Why they hate you run deep in America? Why they wanna kill me in America? Is it me or is it cause they scared of us? Moment of truth, they show their colors when the virus is. I'm American, fuck if you don't acknowledge it. Hate to see my people running on some coward shit. Gotta fight for what you want or be powerless. Yeah, bring the power to the people. As long as I'm alive, we will never be beneath it. Racists in their hearts, we will never be their equal. Time to fight us now, they will never be a sequel. They want us to fight instead of unify. Want us to fail, they trick us all with hidden lies. Got us all oppressed, keeping us in the mind. Then we rise as kings, I see it in their eyes. The world is yours, the world is yours. Said America, dear America, why they hate you run deep in America? Why they wanna kill me in America? Is it me or is it cause they scared of us? Yo, let me tell you about our history. Back when they hit our ancestors with that trickery. Had us in a frenzy, we was working till we emptied it. Had us mind and go, but we was barely making pennies. Yeah, do you know where our pain at? Who you think built them train tracks?
Do you know where our pain at? Who you think built them train tracks? Did you say, now this guy Chinese, okay? Did he say about how they worked them for pennies in America? And it's an attack. Now it is an attack on Asians in America and how they don't want to see you as equal. Let me explain something. I am opposed to these white supremacists thinking that they can go out here and just start jumping on folks like they done lost their rabbit mind just because of somebody's skin color, okay? But this narrative that is being portrayed by this artist, I could have swore if I ain't know no better, he was talking about what black people didn't experience. Now, I'm a little bit confused. How y'all done work for pennies till y'all was empty to build in America? No, that's that black experience. And this is what how is it that every time something happened to somebody else, another race, then they start talking about how you put so much, he started talking about sweat equity that they didn't put into this country. Every other race and culture that, look, the Jewish community with the Holocaust, and they had, look, Chinese peoples in concentration camps, and everybody else to receive reparations except for black people. So I get confused when I hear other races, not racist people, but races and ethnicities, who start complaining about America, but y'all come right into our community And I don't never see y'all out there supporting us. And for some of the major contributors to their businesses. Okay, if you Mandarin, Cantonese, Ace, period. Beauty supply stores, nail salons, restaurants. You talk about how they treat you, but where is the unity? You talk about having unity. They don't want to see unity. Well, where is the unity between the Asian community and the Black community? I'm confused about that, considering how we have so many of them right here in the heart of our community, and we contribute so much to their businesses. Did you think about that? Did you think about how, you know, I don't recall seeing a whole host of Asians coming out talking about Black Lives Matter as we're being slaughtered. Maybe the unity should have started there. Again, I do not condone or support these crazy old white racists coming out here, and you think you're going to be beating up on some old Chinese people. Going to be like that one Chinese lady who had that big old 2x4 and going to whoop your back. That's what's going to happen, and I don't blame her. But at the same time, we need to be clear about what's going on, especially in our own community. We need to be. Now, I know that they don't like what's happening, but we don't like it either. And it's been going on in the Black community, in the brown community, from these white races. If anybody should have been standing out there on the front, it should have been the Chaldeans and it should have been the Asians, okay? Because you shouldn't want to see us get slaughtered because we your bread and butter. Because y'all all around. You got the liquor stores, the gas stations, the nail salons, the Chinese restaurants. I mean, you got it all in the Black community. The beauty supply stores, you're never going to go hungry in the beauty supply stores because we all up in there. But now that it happened to you, there's some outrage. But remember when I told you about be careful and let's see how the legislators and people are going to respond to the Asians being attacked. Well, look at here. NYPD adding undercover patrols to combat anti-Asian attacks. The New York Police Department, New York Police Department is adding undercover patrols to combat anti-Asian attacks. Okay. New York Police Department will increase outreach and patrols in Asian communities, including the use of undercover officers amid a spike in anti-Asian hate crimes, officials said Thursday. The department is sending undercover officers to the cities, Chinatown, and other areas with significant Asian populations in an attempt to prevent and disrupt attacks. Police Commissioner Dermot Shea said at a news conference. The undercover officers are being trained. Now they had an additional training. Listen to this. They are being trained and will be on patrol by the end of the weekend. Just that fast. Just that fast. Look at there. Chief of Department Rodney Harrison said he described the complement as a robust team, but declined to give a specific number of officers. That must mean it's a lot. You're going to get a lot of them. All of whom are of Asian descent. In a warning to would-be attackers, Shea said the next person you target, whether it's through speech, menacing activity, or anything else, walking along a side or on a train platform, may be a plainclothes New York City police officer. So you better think twice. Look at there. The NYPD is also adding 2 detectives to its hate crime task force, holding community forums in Asian neighborhoods. Now, listen, they holding community forums in Asian neighborhoods about this, including Flushing, Queens, and Sunset Park, Brooklyn, and providing businesses and residents with posters and pamphlets printed in Mandarin, Korean, and other languages. Oh, Shea also announced Inspector Tommy is it Nick or something, as the leader of the department's Asian hate crime task force, replacing the retiring deputy inspector Stuart Liu. The NYPD has tailed 26 anti-Asian incidents this year, including 12 assaults, compared with 8 stemming from misplaced blame for the coronavirus pandemic at the same time last year. Now, let me tell you something. Black folks in New York now, I just want to say, so, even, look, the Hispanic community, y'all need to be mad. You know who should be mad? I'm going to tell you who should take care of this. The LGBTQ community. Now, this is when y'all need to come out in droves, folks, okay? This is when y'all need to line up, because you know y'all will stick together and shut something down, okay? Now, they going to come out with undercover cops for these hate crimes for the Asian community. Now, I know good and well, y'all been protesting about the hate crimes against y'all. They gonna even go and get Asian officers to go undercover. Black folks been getting they whooped in New York forever. And you think some of those hate crimes wasn't coming from white supremacists? Not one time have we ever seen a response like this. New York, out of all, that's the part that really got me. New York, out of all places. You have these kind of resources. Not only are they going to send officers undercover, but they're going to have community forums. They're going to give them pamphlets, literature, posters. Then they're going to put them not only around the businesses, they're going to put them on the trains and on the streets. Think on the train, on the trains and on the streets and in the businesses. And they're going to make sure that the literature is in different languages so all of them can understand it. Look how that Asian community, boy, they done put their foot down and they got a response. But you know what we get? Some exercise. That's what black folks get. You get some exercise from protesting in the street. That's what we get. All of the hate crime. You know, I'm so sick of this about everybody. When it happened to somebody else, it's always a hate crime. But when this type of stuff happens to black people, it's just the norm. And they trying to figure out what kind of punishment and charges that they could come up with when it comes to black people being assaulted. But everybody else, it's a hate crime. So black people aren't hated in this country. I just want to understand that. Black people aren't hated in this country. Look at the resources and look how responsive and quick the NYPD has responded to this issue. Did you say 26 incidents? I guarantee you that if they took a look at how many hate crimes have happened to black people, it'd be far more than 26. Where are undercover police officers at? Look how little people value our lives. Look, I mean, this is unbelievable. It should, you know what, Al Sharpton and Nan over there in New York, what y'all got to say about this? Where's Tamika Mallory on this one? This what she should stand up for. I ain't trying to order your steps or anything, but I know she got to be pissed about this. If you're going to do that for the Asians, why aren't you doing it for our community? How can this be acceptable? I mean, this is so thoughtful. Let me say that. Like, they have really covered so many aspects of making sure that they protect this community. And that's fine. But where's the same energy for black people? Where's the same energy for black people? You have messaging around this. You know, they have been very thoughtful and intentional about their efforts. And then you're gonna deploy, they won't even tell us how many people. You know, that's how I know it must be a lot. They won't tell us how many. That's a problem. Shouldn't y'all know how many out there? Because isn't this coming out of taxpayer dollars, New Yorkers? Shouldn't you know? You know what this remind me of? When the Detroit Police Department was down there with them old crazy Confederate flag folks downtown, when they want to come down there with all their assault rifles and stuff and protest. You didn't arrest none of them, but you want to arrest black folks in the city who protest. That's what it reminded me of. I'm just saying something similar. Wow, you can dispatch those officers undercover, but you mean to tell me that we've never seen anything like this for black people? That's a sin and a shame. Something is really wrong. Really wrong. And I can't even believe how this is even acceptable, and you haven't heard outrage from the community in New York. How do we even allow this? I know Como over there, he got his own issues, right? Because they trying to take him out of office. So he has his own issues over there. But I just would really love to know, like, how did this even come about? What type of pressure came from the Asian community that they could get this type of response from the NYPD? And the only reason why I ask is because we need to take a page out of their playbook. We really and truly do. You know, it's not just police officers who are killing our people. You know, we have a lot of other races who hate us and attack us as well. So where's the same type of response? I think this is so sad and very disturbing. And once again, you know, our silence makes us complicit when we're mistreated in this way. I'm just simply saying, if you do it for one, you should be able to do it for another. And we need to think about that. You know, why isn't it? Why do we mean so little to everyone else? I don't know, but I would like to see some organizations come out around that. Then you have, when you look at some of the feedback that we're getting, well, that they're receiving in the Asian community, there are other protections across the country that they will be receiving. And what type of legislation? And what type of legislation are they going to push? And I'm sorry, what type of legislation is going to be pushed to make sure that there's more severe penalties that happen to the people who are committing these crimes? All right, we have a caller. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show. Hello, good morning. You know what? We can barely hear you. Can you call right back? I don't know why we could barely hear. We need to figure out, you know, is the legislation already in the pipeline to make sure that there's a stiffer penalty around these attacks on the Asian community? And if so, then we need to make sure that this George Floyd bill comes up first. Because what's happening with that? We cannot keep having such a short-term memory. We cannot afford to do that. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show. I don't know what's going on with this caller. And then there's also another bill that they were talking about. This phone is ringing again. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show.
Good morning. Good morning. I think this is Police Commissioner William Davis. I think far too often we in the Black community have a problem in that we are too nice and too kind and too forgiving to people that treat us bad.
We're consistent with that. We are.
Yes, I mean, how could you call a boycott and don't have it for at least 7 days? I mean, you want them to know that what you're going to do is, it's going to be effective. I mean, the Montgomery boycott lasted over. I mean, we cannot keep doing this thing. We have to demand people, especially people that we elect. We need to be pushing up against them and making them know that we are concerned about what they're doing or not doing.
I agree, and I think 7 days definitely would have had a huge impact on the boycott. I don't know what it is, and there was so much momentum built around it, like Elena had said earlier, because you know what, they even had people on CNN talking about it. Like, it was well organized. It definitely was well organized. So I don't know why they didn't follow through. It's
yeah, because at least 7 days would have been a dent in the profits. Instead of a perceived dent in their profits. We know we need to let them know that we're concerned and that we can take our dollars elsewhere.
I agree.
Need to be going elsewhere most of the time anyway.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. We need to make our dollars go to work for us, and this is one great way to do it. This is one great way to do it. I thank you for that. Thank you so much for calling in today.
Have a great day.
You too. Good morning and welcome to the Nicole Small Show. You know what's something, I don't know why we having so many technical difficulties today. I agree about the boycott. We need to make sure that we're consistent and we follow through with our demands. And if we don't follow through, you know what, that sends a message to the other side that, you know what, this is all temporary. And that's what they're anticipating, is that, you know what, we're upset for 5 minutes and then we're just going to go away. And that's what they expect, because that's what they see so often in our community. And I don't know how else we expect to receive the results that we are demanding if we don't follow through. We need to follow through. If we say that this is what we want out of somebody, these are our, and we need to be clear about them, and we need to stand on it. And it's hard to develop this type of momentum around these issues. It is very difficult to develop that type of momentum. So why allow it to be diminished because you don't want to see some people be affected? This is for the greater good. And I believe that this should have been around a long-term plan. Just like I feel that there needs to be some long-term plans around making sure that Black people receive the same type of attention from the police department around attacks that we're having on our people. And for some reason, we don't want to do that either. Because I guess we feel that if we demand something for us, that is actually against that community. No, we're just saying that we're just as important. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with stepping up to the plate and saying, you know what, you are going to put us first. And we need more of that. And we need to do it sooner than later. I don't know why this is going on. There's another issue. Oh, here it is. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show.
You know, I couldn't let this show go by without speaking on the leaders, the so-called leaders. We don't have any leaders with backbones. That was one of the problems. These leaders is with them. They not with us. They leaders. These not our leaders. Our leaders will stand up for us and speak on certain problems we're having in the city of Detroit. But see, they go along to get along because, like was said earlier, they want that money that for their campaigns to run again. And these same so-called leaders that these folks, I don't understand, that's putting in office, I don't understand why they can't see the picture. I guess they like having a foot on their neck in the city of Detroit. Amen. And it's sad that it's like that. I'm so sick and tired of all these so-called Black people won't get their behinds up and throw these bums out of office, because that's what they is. They just going along. They just vote running for office to have a job and to have a paycheck or a pension. They don't care about the people. And the people will sit up there and let them feed them all this garbage. I'll call it garbage. That's what it is. That they're giving us and tell them, hold on to this. This is what y'all deserve. I can't understand it, Nicole. We see it. We see the writing on the wall. They see it, but they study, oh, this is my buddy, or he a good person, or he talk well. No, let's put some real leaders in office that care about Detroit, that's going to fight for Detroit, and if they don't, we hold their feet to the fire. These folks won't do nothing but fight each other in the city of Detroit. It's so sad. We will fight each other, but when you go and tell them, come on, get out and vote the right people in office, these folks look at you like you crazy. Oh, this person ain't no good. Like they want to put the media want to give all the attention to one white guy talking about District 4, and he ain't been out here and did a darn thing. What about all the ones that's running, that's been fighting for the people, standing up, putting their bodies on the line for us?
That's right.
People, wake up.
That's right.
Wake up. I'm sorry, Nicole. I'm just pissed because of what's going on. I'm so pissed at the same old. They with Doug in, they sitting up there looking, he's sitting up there smiling, looking at it like, yeah, I'm gonna get y'all black folks again. Y'all go put me in.
Yeah.
He got that grin on his face. You see that grin on his face. Throw that bum back over there in Livonia or wherever he's been staying at. I ride the mansion. I ride through the mansion. I rode there yesterday. I rode down there 2 days ago. The same car sitting in the same place. Like ain't nothing. There's so much dust over there because ain't nobody using the mansion over there.
You can't even get him to stay here with a free house. Now that tells you a whole lot about him. You can't even get him to live here, and we giving him a free house with a pool.
I'm gonna go over there, Nicole, and ask, can I stay there?
You ain't lying. We ought to have a pool party. We ought to have a pool party over there because he not using it and cook out and everything. And we sure need to be there for the fireworks. We paying for it and he not using it. I mean, what's the difference?
So I again agree, and I appreciate your show because you tell it like it is, and you give it to us straight with no chase. And if they can't take it, then don't sit down and listen, because we're going to give it to you straight with no chase.
That's right.
If you don't like that, then, kick rock. Thank you again. I'm going to continue to listen, and we appreciate you. And run, Nicole, run.
All right. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know what? Kenny brought up a great point when he talked about these people office, they just want to stay there and get their pension. That needs to be like a campaign. Maybe Daria for the retirees, they need to run their own campaign and say, don't elect these people over again and stop their pension since our pension has been cut. Because I think you have to be on council for 10 years, so that's 2.5 terms. Who else is up for 2.5 terms? I think Leland won't be back. Tate, who else? Tate, Ayers, Benson. That's what we ought to do, run a campaign and tell you to stop their pension. Good morning. Welcome to the Nicole Small Show. How are you?
I'm okay, but I'm mad and pissed, just like your last caller. Because I realized, like he said, with the city council, the media, announced last night that he was running. And like you said, he's got the media behind him because it's all part of Duggan's scam for them to continue the corruption here. People that see that's benefiting Duggan.
Yeah.
So it's like, this goes to show y'all what I've been saying for so long. The media is involved with this corruption here.
Yeah, well, the media has always been involved with the corruption.
Exactly, and they're not making it any better. But my point is, what about the other people that's running for city council?
They don't want you to know about them because they don't want you to know what your options are.
Well, is there anything that we can do to?
We can always send. A message to the media directly and telling them how we want to hear from these people.
I'm not talking about them. I mean, as far as getting our own media out.
Yeah, we can have our own platforms. No, I agree. I agree. But that's why we need to have our own platforms too, for these candidates. You know, a lot of people were saying when we did the one for mayor, oh, well, why is this happening already? Because nobody else wants to educate our people, you know, and give everybody an opportunity to hear from these candidates. We're going to have another one April the 24th for the city clerk's office. Like, we're going to have to continue on our own in order to make sure that we give the information out to our community, because we just can't. I agree with you. We can't rely on the media. They're just not, they don't care. Right. They're not for us. I agree. Yeah.
They're told what to say.
Yeah.
So it's like, from that point there, we don't have nobody on our side but us. So that's why.
Well, nobody's coming to save us but us. So we know that. We ought to know that by now.
You know what I would like to see around here in the city of Detroit?
What?
Whether it's the young girls or the young boys, how they like to, you know, rap and then grab a mic in a minute. Well, I would love to see them get a camera and a mic and go around and be reporters for us.
Yeah, for us, right.
You know what I'm saying? And it can be displayed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can go out just like the media do. They can go out and interview the council members that's running for us.
Right.
You know, and we can expose them just like the media. There's ways we can do it.
Yeah. Well, maybe when the weather warms up, we could do some things outdoors so we could get some more people an opportunity to come out and talk about their platforms. The filing deadline is April the 20th. And matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna read to everybody who's filed so far on the list. But
one other thing I noticed on the news last night, they said M.L. Hovich was running for District 4, Spivey's old district. But I noticed he was around a lot of white. I'm like, what district is that? Where are they at?
District 4, district, but he lives over there near East English Village, so there are quite a few white people. But I'm gonna tell you, District 4, it's on the east side, but you have to remember, it's a lot of white people who moved over there because it was the second highest gentrified district in the city, for the simple fact that District 5, of course, was going to be first because it's directly in the heart of downtown. But you don't have as much like in the single family housing in small communities that you have in District 4. You don't have as many of those in District 5. Plus, if you got in early enough and you went to District 4, I mean, you could still live off the water. It was a lot cheaper if you got in there in enough time to make sure that you got some decent housing and you was a hop, skip, and a jump away from downtown. Plus, you could still get the neighborhood feel. So there are a lot of white people who live over there in District 4. That's true. Yep. So that's where he was at. He was in his neighborhood. Now I'm gonna give him credit for that. He was in his neighborhood, M.L. Elric. That's where he was at.
But I mean, I would like to see some people that's running for city council to come out. And on top of that, we need to stop that man who crucified Kilpatrick. I don't see why would y'all want somebody that locked up, lied.
Because it was a lot of us crucifying Kilpatrick. That's why. It wasn't just some white folks in the media crucifying Kilpatrick. It was a lot of black folks crucifying Kilpatrick. That's why they'll support M.L. Elric. That's why. I won't put, guess what? He had to have an audience, didn't he? He had to have an audience to do what he did. I mean, he won a Pulitzer Prize for stalking Kwame Kilpatrick and Christine Beatty. That's the bottom line. He had to have an audience, and it wasn't just white folks. He did have an audience for some people in black folks in Detroit. Now that's the truth.
I would rather see Charlie McDuff get that seat than him.
Well, Charlie don't live over there, but I hear you. I hear you. But thank you so much for calling. I appreciate you. We'll work on doing something for the city council candidates. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Look, we've already known historically that like I said, nobody's coming to save us. When it comes to being fair and equal to Black people, even though we the majority in this city, the likelihood of that really happening probably is slim to none, and Slim already ran out of the door. So to the caller's point, I agree. We have a lot of work to do at the city council level, but we got a lot of work to do within our community. At some point, when it comes to holding each other accountable, we need to talk about who's really out here to build equity within our own community. I don't know how to stress this enough. If we waiting on the media, good luck with that. You know, good luck with them shining a light on our, or highlighting our quality of life in its authentic narrative. We can't even get that from the city of Detroit, even with their media department, and they work for us. So I don't know how you anticipate that an independent news media outlet is going to do what's right. So that's just the way that it is. I do believe that we have enough power to pressure them to do better. But to the caller's point, yeah, we need to take a look at organizing to do better by ourselves, like they're doing in Georgia. It's more than about just voting for what they're doing in Georgia. It's about how they mobilize and organize around issues that are impacting their community. And we need more of that. You know, I look at the diverse group of people who came out again for the second time this past weekend for Sister Andrea. You know, you have people out there who all of us don't get along, don't agree politically, but we all came together for that. Because we were like, hold on, let's draw the line. We need more of that in our community. As far as getting to know the platform for some more of these candidates who are actually running for city council, I hear you. I hear all of you, what you're saying about ML Elric. The only person who had a comment about it, who lives in that district so far, who called in, was Kenny, who called. He does live in that district. But I'm gonna be honest with you. The problem is that you have some Black people who feel like he did a great job by the story that he reported. My issue with ML Elric is, you know, you have that type of zeal and zest to approach making sure you got that story out about Kwame and Christine, but you will read, I mean, it was watered down, any of the stories that you did about Duggan. See, that's the problem. There's not a balance. There's not a balance. And so then that plays into question to a lot of people. That's what makes people think that he's a racist. It's because of his efforts towards Kwame Kilpatrick, but you didn't hear him really attacking Duggan, not in that manner. But when I tell you that it's a lot of folks out here who are afraid of Duggan, that is true. All right, like that is true. They are really afraid of him. And so you have to remember that. He's going to put a lot of money into these city council races to make sure that he secures the majority of vote on city council. I want you to pay attention to something. Start looking at how you think that they were selling out on a lot of these votes before. You ain't seen nothing yet. They want that money to be able to run for re-election. You know, a lot of them are not really independent thinkers. You know, they're not as strong as they claim to be. So they don't believe that they can go out here, and some of them lazy. That's just the bottom line. Now, you talking about getting out here, I don't care if it wasn't a pandemic, to go do the work to reach the voters, no. And you do need money to run a campaign. But how is it that you've been selling us out forever and you can't go get some of those dollars? I just get confused about that part. You know, and then they have no boundaries. Like, there's nothing that you won't stop at anything to make sure that you get that support of the mayor. Just the facts. But if you don't say that you want better and you take the actions to show that you want better, I'm saying you as a voter, then why do you think that they're going to change? What reason are you giving them to change? They bank on the supermajority not knowing what they're really doing, right? They bank on that. Do you think that they want an uptick in voter turnout? Heck no, because that's more voters that they have to talk to. They don't want that. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't come out and vote. It doesn't. You know, at some point, let's start really exercising our freedoms. because we really are free. But you have to conduct yourself like you know that you're free. And then you wonder why you have people who are supporting the administration with all of its oppressing efforts. It's because they don't think that we're organized on this side. And some of the loudest people talking all of this trash over here, y'all do everything to support the other side. You know, look at what's going on in this mayoral race. And I'm just going to say it for what it is. You got all of these half-baked theories and everything, and everybody want to say something about Anthony Adams, but you're not even focusing on Mike Duggan. That's stupid. That's stupid. That helps Mike Duggan. And half of you don't even know what you're talking about. Some of you old. And when I mean old, like you old for real. But you claim you want Mike Duggan out. And then you'll talk about those who publicly support Mike Duggan. You are too, because you publicly talking trash about another candidate to get him out. And you don't even know what you're talking about half the time. And this is my thing. Do you want him gone or not? Period. Period. I don't know who they running a race against, but that's the way that it is. And then when it comes to city council, listen, the people who are incumbents are not the only ones who are huge supporters of Duggan. Duggan also has other people who are running in these races who he's going to support. He's going to put his money in a couple of different races. That's just the way that he operates. If you don't like it, then change. Period. You know why he does that? Because it works. Because it works in our community. ML Elric is not the only person running in District 4 who's a huge supporter or who's a supporter of Mike Duggan. Really and truly, he's not the biggest supporter of Mike Duggan who's running in that race. That's just the reality. What do you want? You have to decide what you want. You have to exercise your freedom. Today, we talked about the boycotts in Georgia, you know, and withdrawing the boycott as momentum was played. And I think to a certain extent, a lot of these corporations, they bet on that happening. And we're quite relieved. I think we rescinded our efforts, pulled out a little too soon, but that's okay. I still support. That's just my opinion. I still support the efforts that they're putting together in Georgia. Then we talked about, you know, what's going on with this, with the Asian attacks, and how you have an entire system that's going to rally around making sure that they have protections in place, but meanwhile, nobody's protecting us. So we have to deal with the reality of our situation. All of it goes together. This one system, when we talk about voter suppression, when we talk about racism, when we talk about protections of other races, for a system that we pay into, right? That we pay into. You have American, Asian Americans, Indian Americans, all of these other people talking about how they American too. Well, you know what? Well, we American too, but why does that not seem to be high on a priority list? Because we don't force it to be. All I can tell you is that this year, we're going to have to do some self-analysis and some real soul searching. And be real clear about who we are and how we contribute to our own oppression, because we won't stand firm on demands that will help improve the quality of life for our community. See, this I thing has gotten us to where we are today. We don't talk about we collectively and what we could do and be consistent with it. Then we're going to continue to be in this predicament. That's just the bottom line. I hope that we do better this year. I hope that we see the value in coming together. It won't be all of us, but those of us who say that we want the same thing, we're going to have to put some action behind it to show that this is the outcomes that we want are really the outcomes that we're really are the actions that we're willing to sacrifice to make sure that we get those outcomes. And you can't have one without the other, right? You can't say you want this and then not put the efforts behind it to make sure that it happens. And some of you don't want any better. I'm clear on that. Some of you don't want to be free. Some of you, you don't want to have leadership that really is going to represent your best interests. Because so often in this work, we have to fight those of you. We have to fight those of you who we are fighting for. And you wonder why some people just say, forget it, throw their hands up and go to the other side because they're tired of fighting the people who they fighting for. It gets to be a bit exhausting. All right? It's just that I don't want no parts of that other side. I don't want to have to sell my soul, for a few pieces of silver. That's just me. That's just me. But I'm just telling you, this work can be exhausting. At some point, we just gonna have to say, this is what we're gonna do and follow through with it. And stop all of this other mess that seems to get in the way. And it prevents us from actually being successful at some of the initiatives that we are pursuing. Think about that. I thank you all for joining me today. We will be back here on Monday at 8 a.m. on the Nicole Small Show. Have a great day, a great week, and be safe. Thank you.